The battlefield was burning, flames rose high, and the smell of smoke and blood filled the air. The alien queen stood tall among the ruins, her silver armor broken and her long dark cloak torn. Her crown, once shining, was stained with dust and ash, but her eyes, bright and sharp like blades, still glowed with fire. She was wounded, bleeding from her side, yet she refused to kneel. Around her, her soldiers lay fallen, their weapons scattered in the dirt. They had trusted their leaders, but trust had been betrayed. Her own general, the one she had raised since he was young, had turned against her. He had bowed to her for years, sworn loyalty to her name, but tonight he revealed his true heart. He sold her to the enemy. He stood across the field now, sword in hand, blood of his queen's guards dripping from his blade. The queen's chest rose and fell with anger. Her voice was low, filled with venom. "You dare betray me, Kale," she hissed. Her voice echoed in the ruins. Kale, her once loyal general, only smiled. "You are too proud, my queen," he answered. "Your time is over. The galaxy no longer needs you, and I no longer bow to a dying empire." With those words, he lifted his weapon and signaled the enemy soldiers forward. The queen fought like a storm. Her blade cut through the air, fast and deadly. Each strike carried her fury, her grief, and her burning pride. But her body was weak. Blood dripped from her wounds, and every movement felt heavier than the last. Still, she fought. Still, she would not surrender. She was a queen. Her bloodline had ruled for centuries, and she would not give her enemies the joy of watching her crawl. But fate was cruel. Her foot slipped on the rubble. Her blade struck too late. An enemy spear slashed across her shoulder, and she fell to her knees. Her vision blurred. The world swayed around her. She pressed one hand against the wound at her side, warm blood soaking her fingers. Her breathing grew sharp, almost broken. But even then, she did not scream. Her pride was stronger than her pain. The enemy closed in, their boots crunching over bones and stone. They surrounded her, their eyes filled with hunger. They wanted the queen alive. They wanted to break her spirit. She raised her head and glared at them, her lips curling into a snarl. "If you think I will beg, then you do not know me," she spat. Her words were daggers, but her strength was fading fast. And then, a sound broke the night. It was not the sound of her warriors, nor the call of her people. It was the heavy footsteps of a stranger. Out from the smoke walked a man, not an alien, not one of her kind, but a human. He was tall, rough, his armor scratched and burned, his eyes burned with defiance. He carried no royal crest, no noble mark. He was a soldier, nothing more. And yet he walked forward with the courage of kings. The enemies turned their weapons toward him. The human did not stop. He cut down 2 soldiers with sharp, fast strikes. Then he stood over the queen, his shadow falling across her broken body. His hand reached out, steady and firm. "Come," he said. "I'll get you out of here." The queen's lips curled, her pride boiling like fire. Her voice cracked with fury as she snarled, "You dare touch me, human. You are not worthy." Her words tore through the smoke, her rage stronger than her pain. To her, a human was nothing, an outsider, a wanderer, a weak creature among greater species. She would rather die than let him carry her like a helpless child. But the human did not flinch. He did not pull his hand back. His eyes held hers, unshaken. "You can hate me later," he said quietly, "but right now, you need me." The queen froze, her pride and her fear colliding in her chest. For the first time in her life, she felt powerless. Her own people had abandoned her. Her own general had betrayed her. And here stood a human, someone she had never respected, offering her life. When all else was lost, her hand trembled, her blade fell from her grip. The sound of steel hitting stone echoed in the silence. Blood dripped onto the ground. Her vision dimmed. And as the human's hand stayed outstretched, steady and waiting, she let out a broken snarl, her voice faint but sharp. "You are not worthy." But her body leaned, her knees gave way, and before she could stop herself, she fell against him. The human caught her, strong arms, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was his face, stubborn and unafraid, a face she would remember, whether she wanted to or not. And in the burning ruins of betrayal, the story began. The queen's body was cold against him. Her blood stained his arms, but the human did not stop. He carried her through the burning ruins, his boots crunching against shattered stone. Arrows and energy bolts flew past, striking the walls around them. The enemy was still hunting, there. Voices echoing through the smoke. The human gritted his teeth. His name was Marcus, a soldier without a home, a wanderer among the stars. He had come to this war as nothing but a mercenary. Humans were looked down upon in this galaxy weak, soft, unworthy of respect. But Marcus had survived every battle thrown at him. He had scars to prove it, and tonight, he had saved the very queen who once swore humans were beneath her. The queen stirred in his arms, her eyelids heavy, her voice, though faint, still burned with venom. "Put me down, human," she whispered. "I will not be carried like some wounded beast." Marcus glanced down at her, his jaw tight. "You can snarl all you want," he muttered, "but if I put you down, you die. And I'm not wasting my night digging graves." The queen's eyes widened, shocked at his defiance. No one spoke to her like that. No one dared. Even her own generals bowed low, choosing silence over truth. But this human, this mercenary with torn armor and no rank, dared to speak to her as if she were just another soldier. She tried to push against him, but her strength failed. Pain cut through her side like fire. Her head dropped against his chest, her pride screaming even as her body betrayed her. "You are a fool," she hissed. "My enemies will tear you apart for touching me." Marcus gave a dry laugh. "Let them try, Queen. They'll find I'm harder to kill than they think." He ducked into the shadows of a ruined archway, setting her carefully against the wall. The queen winced, but held her chin high, refusing to show weakness. Marcus knelt and pulled a small medpack from his belt. His fingers worked quickly, tearing open cloth, wrapping it around her wounds. The queen's lip curled, her pride still stronger than her pain. "You dare treat me as if I am your patient." Marcus didn't look up. "You're not my patient, you're my responsibility now," he said firmly, "and I don't let people die on my watch." The queen froze, her chest tightening at his words. Responsibility, her own general, the one she trusted most, had betrayed her. Yet this human, who owed her nothing, dared to claim her life as his duty. It made no sense. It was madness. A sudden shout split the night. Enemy soldiers spotted them, their torches glowing through the smoke. Marcus cursed under his breath and pulled the queen to her feet. She stumbled, nearly falling, but his arm held her steady. "Move," he hissed, dragging her toward a broken staircase. The queen wanted to argue, to demand her sword, but her body trembled, too weak to fight. They climbed the ruined steps, the enemy close behind. Marcus stopped at the top, pushing the queen behind him. He raised his rifle, his eyes hard and focused. Shots rang out, each one sharp and precise. 3 enemies fell, but more poured through the streets. The queen's voice, hoarse but sharp, broke through the chaos. "You cannot fight them all, human." Marcus smirked without turning. "Watch me." He fought like a beast. His strikes were not elegant like her warriors, but they were brutal, fast, and unrelenting. He used everything: his blade, his fists, even rubble from the ground. The queen watched, her chest tight. This was not the weak, cowardly human she had imagined. This was something else, something raw, something dangerous. But the enemy was endless. Marcus grabbed her arm, pulling her down another path. They stumbled, through dark alleys, past burning towers, past the cries of the dying. Finally, they collapsed inside a half-broken hall. The roof was torn, the stars above glowing faintly through the smoke. Marcus pressed the queen against a pillar, his breath heavy, His eyes scanned the ruins for movement. The queen leaned back, her pride wounded more than her flesh. "You risk your life for nothing," she said coldly. "I am not your queen. I am not your kin. Why do you fight for me?" Marcus turned to her, his face shadowed by the dim firelight. "Because someone has to," he said simply. The words cut through the silence. Sharp and unshaken, she stared at him, searching for mockery, but found none, only truth, only defiance. Her lips parted, but no words came. No warrior of her kind had ever spoken with such raw certainty, and no one, not even her most loyal knight's head, stood in front of her, ready to die without question. Her heart pounded, not from weakness, but from something she could not name. Outside, the enemy shouted, their voices growing closer. Marcus grabbed his weapon and glanced back at her. "You're not done yet, Queen," he said, his tone sharp but steady. "If you want to live, you'll have to trust me." The Queen's jaw tightened, pride battling with survival. Her mind screamed to refuse, but her body, her bleeding, trembling body knew the truth. For now, she had no choice. For now, she would trust a human, and that thought alone was more terrifying than death itself. The ruins were dark, filled with smoke and falling ash. The Queen leaned heavily on Marcus as they moved, her legs weak and her wounds deep. Every step was pain, every breath was fire in her chest, but she would not cry out, she would not give. The enemy, the pleasure of hearing her weakness. Marcus kept one arm tight around her, his other hand gripping his weapon. His eyes scanned every shadow, every broken wall. He knew they were being hunted. The enemy soldiers were spreading through the city like wolves, searching for their prey. If they were caught now, both he and the Queen would die. The Queen's voice broke the silence, soft but sharp. "You should have left me where I fell," she whispered. Marcus didn't look at her, his voice low and steady. "Then you'd already be dead. And I don't bury people I can save." Her eyes narrowed, anger rising. "You speak as if my life is yours to decide, human." Marcus gave a faint smirk. "Right now it is," he muttered. "You're alive because I won't let you die." Her pride burned at his words. She was a queen, ruler of worlds, and yet she was leaning on a human like a crippled soldier. It was a shame worse than death, and yet, in the back of her mind, something gnawed at her. No warrior of her own kind had come for her. No knight, no general, only this stubborn, defiant human. They slipped into a narrow street, the stones cracked and littered with bones. The shadows grew deeper here, the air colder. The Queen shivered, but held her chin high. Marcus pulled her into the cover of a collapsed arch, holding a finger to his lips. Voices echoed down the street. The enemy patrol was close. The Queen pressed her back against the stone, her breath silent. Through the smoke, she saw enemy torches. Glowing figures moved, armored and armed. One soldier stopped, sniffing the air like a predator. Marcus's grip tightened on his weapon, ready to fight. But the Queen touched his arm, shaking her head. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Not yet, human. We cannot fight them all." Her words surprised even her. For the first time, she wasn't commanding him. She was warning him, almost protecting him. Marcus's eyes met hers, and for a moment the fire of defiance softened. He gave a small nod. Together, they waited. In silence, the shadows covering them, the enemy passed, their voices fading into the night. When it was safe, Marcus pulled her forward again. They walked deeper into the ruins, past broken towers and shattered statues. The Queen's mind was torn. Every step reminded her of betrayal, of the general who had left her to die. But every step also reminded her of the human who now carried her fate in his hands. It was unbearable, it was unthinkable, and yet it was real. They reached an old hall, half buried under rubble. The roof was cracked, moonlight spilling through the gaps. Inside, the silence was heavy, broken only by the dripping of water. Marcus guided her to a stone bench. Lowering her down gently, the Queen winced but held. Her pride, You treat me as if I am fragile, she hissed. Marcus shrugged, his voice calm. You're bleeding, not fragile. He set down his weapon and pulled out his med pack again. The queen pulled back, her eyes cold. You will not touch me, she warned. Marcus looked at her, unshaken. Fine, he said, then bleed out. See if your pride keeps you alive. The queen's lips tightened, her heart pounding with fury. No one spoke to her like this. No one, and yet he was right. She was weak, and her body was failing. Slowly, painfully, she let him tend her wounds. His hands were steady, his touch rough, but careful. The bandages tightened around her side, the pain sharp, but bearable. She studied his face in the dim light. There was no fear, no worship, no hesitation, only stubborn will. He was not saving her because she was queen. He was saving her because that was who he was. A human with no crown, no throne, but a heart stronger than iron. The queen's chest tightened, an emotion she could not name rising within her. She forced herself to look away. You are reckless, she muttered. One man cannot carry me through an army. Marcus smirked, checking the chamber of his weapon. Then it's good. I'm not just any man. Before she could answer, a crash shook the hall. The roof cracked further, dust falling from above. Torches flickered outside, voices growing louder. The enemy had found them. Marcus grabbed his weapon, pulling the queen to her feet. Her body trembled, but her eyes burned again with fury. For the first time since the betrayal, she wanted to fight. Marcus's voice was sharp, steady. Stay behind me, queen. Her head lifted, her pride flaring. No, human, she said, gripping a fallen blade from the floor. I fight beside you. The enemy poured into the hall, their blades flashing, their eyes filled with hunger. Marcus and the queen stood shoulder to shoulder, two warriors from different worlds, united only by survival. The queen's blade sang through the air. Marcus's rifle roared, and in the shadows of the broken hall, their fight began. The hall shook with every strike. Steel clashed, sparks lit the shadows, and the screams of soldiers echoed through the ruins. Marcus fought with brutal strength, each shot from his rifle taking down an enemy. When his weapon clicked empty, he swung it like a club, breaking bones and knocking foes to the ground. Beside him, the queen moved like a wounded storm. Her blade flashed with skill, but her body was weak, her wounds slowing her. Still, her pride burned hotter than her pain. Every strike was a promise she would not be broken. Not by betrayal, not by her enemies, not even by death itself. Marcus glanced at her as he fought. Her eyes were blazing, her jaw tight with rage, but he saw the truth. She was faltering, her body close to collapse. He stepped in front of her, taking a strike meant for her chest, his armor sparking as the blade scraped across it. The queen's breath caught, fury rising. Do not shield me, human, she snarled. Marcus grunted, pushing an enemy back. Then stop bleeding and fight harder. For a moment, her anger flared hotter than the flames around them, but in the middle of her rage, she realized something she had never admitted before. He was not mocking her, not belittling her. He was demanding she rise, demanding she survive. No alien Hinedel, no knight of her throne, had ever spoken to her like that. The hall doors burst open again, more soldiers rushing in. They were trapped, outnumbered, and surrounded. The queen's breath came sharp and fast. Marcus reloaded his weapon with shaking hands. He knew the truth. They couldn't win this fight. Not like this. Listen to me, Marcus said, his voice rough. If you stay here, you die. The queen's blade dripped with blood, her pride still unbroken. I will not run. Not from them, she spat. Marcus stepped close, his eyes hard. This isn't about running, it's about living. Do you want your betrayer to win? Do you want him to rule while you rot in the dirt? Her chest tightened at his words. Kill the traitor who had once bowed to her, was waiting for her death, waiting to claim her throne. If she died here, her empire would die with her. Her people would kneel to a traitor. Her legacy would burn. Her hand trembled. her pride screaming against the truth. But Marcus's words cut deeper than her wounds. Survival was not weakness, survival was vengeance, and if she wanted vengeance, she had to live. Her eyes met his, sharp and full of fire. "Very well, human," she hissed. "I will trust you once." Marcus gave a sharp nod. "That's all I need." He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the broken wall at the back of the hall. Blades slashed past them, sparks flying. Marcus kicked down a loose stone, revealing a hidden passage beneath the rubble. The queen stared at it in shock. "This path was sealed years ago," she whispered. Marcus smirked faintly. "Good thing your people don't check ruins as well as humans do." They dropped into the tunnel, the air damp and cold. The queen stumbled, but kept moving, Marcus guiding her through the darkness. The sounds of battle faded behind them, replaced by the echo of dripping water. The walls were narrow, the shadows thick. Every step felt like walking deeper into a beast's throat. The queen's voice broke the silence, low and heavy. "You should have left me," she whispered. Marcus looked at her, his jaw tight. "Stop saying that," he growled. "You're alive, and as long as you're alive, you still have power." She turned her head, her pride burning. "Power means nothing when my people see me as weak." Marcus stopped, his eyes meeting hers in the dim light. "No," he said firmly. "Weakness is giving up. Weakness is dying when you could keep fighting. You're still breathing, that makes you stronger than the rest." The queen stared at him, stunned by his words. For years, she had believed strength was never falling, never bending. But this human, this stubborn, reckless human, spoke as if strength was found in rising again, even when broken, even when bleeding. They kept moving, the tunnel twisting and turning. At last, they emerged into the open night. The city burned behind them, flames reaching into the sky. The queen's chest tightened as she stared at the destruction. Her home, her throne, her soldiers all lost. And yet, standing beside her, was a human who refused to let her fall. She looked at him, her voice sharp but softer than before. "Perhaps you are not as weak as I thought." Marcus raised an eyebrow, his lips curving into a faint smile. "Careful, queen." That almost sounded like respect. The queen turned her head quickly, hiding the strange heat in her chest. Her pride would not let her admit it. Not yet, but deep inside, a truth had begun to grow. For the first time in her life, she had chosen survival, and she had chosen it because of a human. The night wind howled across the ruins, carrying the sound of distant war. The queen lifted her chin, her eyes blazing again. Her enemies thought she was broken, but she was not. She would rise, she would fight, and when the time came, she would take back her throne. But she would not rise alone. By her side, whether she wanted him there or not, stood Marcus, the defiant human who refused to let her die. The night air was heavy with smoke. The queen and Marcus moved through the ruins, their steps slow but steady. Her body still burned with pain, but her eyes had fire again. She was not broken, not yet. Marcus stayed close, every sense alert. He knew the enemy would not stop. They wanted her alive, wanted to parade her defeat before the galaxy, and if they could not kill him, they would try to use him as bait. The queen's voice cut the silence. Sharp, but low. "They will come again," she said. Marcus gave a dry laugh. "Of course they will. Cowards never quit when they think they can win." But even as he spoke, a strange stillness filled the air. The ruins ahead were too quiet, too empty. Marcus slowed, his hand tightening on his weapon. His instincts screamed, this was wrong, too perfect, too open. The queen noticed too, her hand gripping her blade tighter. "This is not safety," she whispered. "It is a net." Her words were proven true. A moment later, figures stepped out from the shadows. Armored soldiers with glowing eyes. They carried chains, heavy and sharp. Behind them stood Traitor General. His face was twisted in a cruel smile. "My queen," he said mockingly, "you survived longer than I expected, but the game ends here." The queen's body trembled, not from fear but from rage. Her voice was filled with venom. You dare call me queen? You lost the right when you betrayed me. Kale only smirked. I did not betray why I freed myself. Your reign is over. Your bloodline ends tonight. Marcus stepped forward, placing himself between the queen and her former general, his rifle aimed steady, his voice sharp. You'll have to go through me first. Kale's eyes flickered with disgust. A human. This is what you cling to now, he sneered. The queen's jaw tightened, her pride boiling. She wanted to deny it, to spit at Marcus for standing in front of her, but deep inside, she knew Kale's words struck too close to truth. She was still alive because of this man, and Kale hated it. The enemy soldiers moved in. Chains rattling, Marcus fired, the sound echoing through the ruins. 2 soldiers fell, but more closed in. One struck his arm, knocking the rifle away. Another slammed into him, forcing him to the ground. The queen roared, slashing her blade with what strength remained, but a chain wrapped around her wrist, yanking her down. She fought, her body shaking, her pride unbroken, but the weight of the soldiers overwhelmed her. The chains wrapped tighter, cold iron biting her skin. She collapsed to her knees, dragged down. Marcus struggled against 3 enemies at once, his fists bloody, his face bruised, but he refused to yield. Every time they tried to pull him down, he rose again. Every time they struck him, he struck harder. The queen's eyes widened, a strange heat in her chest. Why would he fight this hard for her? Kale stepped closer, his smirk cruel. See how far you have fallen? He mocked, chained like an animal, defended by a worthless human. The queen lifted her head, her glare sharp as fire. Better a worthless human, she spat, than a traitor who kills his own. Kale's smile faltered for a moment, but his pride held. He raised his sword, the blade glowing in the firelight. Then you will die with him, he declared. Marcus's voice cut through the night, hoarse but unbroken. No, he growled, forcing himself up even as soldiers struck him down again. If anyone dies tonight, it's you. The queen's breath caught his defiance, even chained and beaten, was unshakable. Her own people had abandoned her, betrayed her, but this man, this human, refused to let go, and for the first time, she felt something she had not felt in years. Not fear, not pride, but trust. The chains bit deeper, her body screamed with pain, but her eyes locked on Marcus. She whispered through clenched teeth, "Do not fall, human. Fight, for me." Her voice was faint, but Marcus heard it. A surge of fire burned through him. With a roar, he broke free of one soldier's grip, slamming his fist into another's face. He grabbed his fallen blade, slashing through the chains that bound him. Blood dripped from his wounds, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. The queen's heart pounded as she watched. This was no mercenary, no weak outsider. This was a warrior, and in that moment, she realized her survival no longer depended on her pride, it depended on him. The soldiers pulled tighter on her chains, but Marcus fought like a storm, his blade cut through links. Freeing her arm, her fingers closed around her sword once more. The fire returned to her veins. She rose beside him, bloodied, trembling, but unbroken. Kale's eyes widened, his smirk fading. The queen's voice rang out, filled with venom and strength. You thought betrayal would end me, Kale. No, tonight you will see the power of those you called unworthy. And beside her, Marcus stood, his blade dripping with blood. For the first time, they fought not as queen and human, but as warriors. Together, the chains fell to the ground. With a heavy clang, the queen rose beside Marcus, her body trembling from blood loss, but her eyes fierce with fire. Kale's mocking smirk faltered for the first time as he watched her stand. She was no longer the cornered prey he had tried to bind. She was a storm rising again. Marcus wiped blood from his face with the back of his hand, his chest heaving. He looked at the queen, her pale skin streaked with dirt and blood, her sword glowing faintly in the firelight. She looked back at him, and for a moment, their gazes locked. No words were spoken, but in that silence, an unspoken pact was forged. They would not fall not, while the others still stood. The enemy soldiers advanced. Again, their armor clanking, their chains ready. Cale barked an order, his voice full of fury. Take them both. Kill the human, bring the queen alive. The soldiers rushed forward. Marcus lunged to meet them, his blade cutting down the first with raw strength. He fought like a beast unleashed, his movements fueled by sheer will. Every strike was heavy, every blow filled with defiance. He would not give Cale the satisfaction of victory. Beside him, the queen slashed with her blade, each strike elegant but sharp with rage. Though her body ached, she fought harder. Every clash of steel was a reminder she was still alive, still unbroken, and this human, this man she once called unworthy, was fighting as if her life meant more than his own. Marcus blocked a strike aimed at her back, shoving the soldier away with a roar. The queen's breath caught, fury and confusion twisting inside her. She wanted to shout at him for shielding her, yet her chest tightened at his sacrifice. No knight of her empire had ever risked so much for her, but this human. He never hesitated. The battle raged, blades flashing in the night. Marcus took wound after wound, blood dripping down his arm, yet he never slowed. The queen stumbled once, her legs nearly giving way. Marcus caught her shoulder, holding her steady. On your feet, queen, he growled. We're not done yet. Her pride flared at his tone, but so did something else, something deeper, a fire she did not understand. She lifted her chin, gripping her blade tighter. No, she whispered fiercely, we are not together. They struck back, their blades moved in rhythm, human strength and alien skill blending into one deadly force. The soldiers fell one by one, their cries echoing into the night. Cale's smirk twisted into rage as he watched his trap crumble. Enough, Cale roared, stepping forward with his massive blade. He swung it with fury, aiming straight for Marcus. The queen blocked it, sparks flying, the impact shaking her arms. Cale snarled, his eyes blazing. You fight with a human at your side. Have you fallen so low? The queen's voice was venom, sharp as steel. No, she hissed. I have risen higher than you could ever dream. Cale's rage burned hotter, and he struck again. Forcing her back, Marcus lunged, clashing blades with the traitor. Their strength shook the ground, their eyes locked in hatred. Cale sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. You think you can protect her, human? You are nothing. You will die like the rest of your kind. Marcus's voice was hoarse but unshaken. Maybe, he growled, but I'll die standing. Not like you crawling behind betrayal. Their blades sparked again, the sound echoing like thunder. The queen, her chest heaving, saw Marcus bleeding, fighting against an enemy stronger and faster. Something deep inside her snapped. She could no longer see him as unworthy, no longer see him as weak. This man, this human, had stood when all others fled. He had bled for her, fought for her, and never asked for anything in return. Her pride cracked, not in shame but in revelation. For the first time, she felt respect, true respect for one who was not of her kind. Her voice rang out, sharp and fierce. Marcus, she cried. He glanced back, his eyes burning with defiance. She raised her sword high. Together, with a roar, they struck in unison. Her blade sliced across Cale's guard as Marcus drove his strike forward. Cale staggered, fury and disbelief flashing in his eyes. The queen pressed forward, her wounds forgotten. Marcus fought at her side, his every strike timed with hers. Blood poured, blades clashed, and the ruins shook with their fury. Finally, Cale was forced back, his soldiers lying broken around him. He snarled, spitting blood. This is not over, he growled, retreating into the shadows. The queen raised her blade, ready to strike, but Marcus held her arm. Not yet, he said, his voice steady, but heavy. He's not beaten, but he's running. That's enough for now. The queen lowered her blade slowly, her chest heaving. Her pride screamed to chase Cale, to finish him. but her body trembled, her wounds screaming for rest. She looked at Marcus, this bloodied, stubborn human, who still stood tall despite his wounds. Her voice was faint, but steady. Perhaps. You are worthy, after all. Marcus gave a faint smirk, wiping blood from his lip. Was starting to wonder when you'd figure that out. The queen turned her head quickly, hiding the strange warmth that touched her face, but inside, something had changed. Loyalty, a bond she had thought only her people could give, had been shown to her by a human, and in the ruins of betrayal, that bond was stronger than any crown. The ruins were silent after the battle. The queen stood beside Marcus. Both of them bloodied, both of them breathing hard. The ground was littered with broken weapons and fallen soldiers. The smoke curled into the night sky, carrying with it the smell of fire and death. But the war was not over. Cale had escaped into the shadows. The traitor was still alive, and his blade still hungered for the queen's throne. The queen's hand trembled on her sword, her eyes burning with fury. "He will return," she whispered, "and I will not rest until his head lies at my feet." Marcus looked at her, his voice steady but rough. "Then we finish this," he said. She turned to him, her pride still sharp. "You have no place in my throne, human," she hissed. "This is not your fight." Marcus wiped blood from his cheek and smirked. "Doesn't matter, queen. You're still standing, and until Cale is gone, I'll stand with you." Her chest tightened at his words. For the first time in her life, someone spoke, not as a servant, not as a knight, not as a traitor hiding behind loyalty, but as a warrior who chose her, not because of her crown, not because of her throne, but because of who she was. The sound of steel echoed through the ruins. Cale stepped out from the shadows, his massive blade glowing with fire. His armor was cracked, blood stained his face, but his eyes still burned with hate. "You'd think this ends with your survival," he snarled. "No, this ends with your death and the humans." The queen lifted her chin, her voice sharp as lightning. "You betrayed me, Cale. You betrayed your people. But tonight, you will see your end." Marcus tightened his grip on his weapon, his jaw set. "No more running," he muttered. "Let's finish this." The final battle began. Cale charged forward, his blade crashing down with thunderous force. Marcus blocked the strike, the impact shaking his arms, sparks flying into the night. The queen slashed at Cale's side, forcing him back. Together, human and queen fought as one, their strikes blending like fire and steel. Cale roared in fury. "You think a human makes you stronger?" He spat. "You think this worm deserves to fight beside you?" The queen's eyes blazed, her voice filled with venom. "He is more worthy than you ever were." Her words struck deeper than any blade. Cale's face twisted with rage, and he struck harder, faster. Marcus stumbled under the weight of his blows, his body screaming with pain. The queen stepped forward, parrying Cale's strike. Her blade and Marcus's sword struck together, forcing the traitor back. The battle raged, under the broken moonlight. Cale's strength was monstrous, but his rage made him reckless. Marcus's defiance and the queen's precision cut through his fury. Blow by blow, they pushed him to his knees. Cale staggered, his voice a snarl. You cannot kill me. I am stronger than both of you." Marcus wiped blood from his lip and smirked. "Funny," he said. "You don't look stronger. You look scared." The queen stepped forward, her eyes sharp as fire. Her blade rose high, her voice ringing through the ruins. "You called him unworthy, you called me broken, but look who kneels now, with one final strike." She drove her blade through Cale's chest. His cry split the night, his body falling to the ground with a heavy thud. The traitor was dead. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the crackle of fire. The queen stood over Cale's body, her chest heaving, her blade dripping with blood. Her pride burned, but this time, it was not pride in herself. It was pride in survival, in vengeance, in the bond she had forged in blood. She turned to Marcus, her voice low but steady. "You fought for me when my own people abandoned me," she said. You bled for me when my own knights betrayed me. She stepped closer, her eyes locking with his. And when I called you? Unworthy, you proved me wrong. Marcus looked at her, his breath heavy. He smirked faintly, though his body trembled with exhaustion. Does that mean, he said quietly, I have finally earned the right to touch you, Queen? For a long moment, the Queen said nothing. Her eyes searched his, her chest rising and falling. Then, slowly, she lowered her blade. She knelt not as a queen, bowing to a subject, but as a warrior bowing to another warrior. Her voice was a whisper, heavy with respect. You are worthy, human, more than any of my kind ever were. Marcus blinked, stunned into silence. He had expected a snarl, an insult, maybe even another threat, but never this. Never the respect of a queen who once spat at his touch. The night was quiet, the flames dying around them. The queen stood again, lifting her chin. Her empire had fallen, her throne stolen, but she was alive. And beside her stood the one who made her survival possible. Together, they would rebuild. Together, they would rise. And the galaxy would never forget the night a human was deemed worthy of an alien queen.